Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general mid-month reading for the sign of Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant for the last 2 weeks of May. I hope you're well. Using the Triple Goddess Tarot for you today. Whew. So if you haven't seen these videos before, I structure them slightly differently to the main monthly readings. In so much as we are looking for the lesson. Over the course of my life, I've found that it is easier to navigate challenging energy if I understand what the point of the lesson is for me, because I see everything as a lesson, right? And sometimes it's not necessarily teaching you something, other times it's kind of laying the groundwork for what comes next. But in any event, this practice of detachment I found to be really, really helpful, and so that's why I'm sharing it with you today. So I have to say, the energy in the meditation that I did before I started the reading has actually kind of bowled me over sideways. It's left me feeling quite spaced out, actually. It was really, really strong. So let's get 3 cards for you. Right, 3 cards for Virgo, please. 4 of Wands is our first card. We have the 8 of Pentacles and the 4 of Swords to go with it. This is really strong, Virgo. We've got the King of Cups at the bottom of the deck. It's Scorpio energy, but it talks about true mastery of one's emotions. Shut that. Everyone in the world wanting to come past. Yeah. Like, you have learned something truly, truly profound, Virgo. We've got that card that speaks. I think it's the one card in the tarot that nobody really needs, explaining. It's perfectly obvious what it means there. It is incredible heartbreak. We've got the Wheel of Fortune with it here. Right? The lesson that you have learned has been so incredibly profound, and you are now coming out the other side of it. It's a lesson that I wouldn't wish on anyone, but it is yours now. You know, the wisdom that comes with it is yours. And it will be a defining aspect of how you show up in the world from this point on. You know, the ways in which you've changed, you will never go back to, an old way of being. It won't happen, but you are so wise now, so wise. You're struggling so hard. I'm actually feeling really emotional as I'm talking about this, right? So, like I said, what we have here in your current energy is the 4 of Wands, the 8 of Pentacles, and the 4 of Swords. Now, 4s are foundational energy, right? They're constructing a new sense of foundation for you. And it is one, actually. It's funny how, I don't want to say muted. What do I want to say? Understated this energy is for what it is that I'm feeling, because it's so very strong, it's so very powerful, and yet it is so understated too. I mean, I guess that's an earth sign thing, right? But the 4 of Wands is the creation of a new foundation in the way that you live, right? The one suit is all about living and experience, and often joy. And when it goes too far, when passion goes too far, it turns into, conflict and conflicted behaviour, sometimes aggression. But, all of the elements have their upsides and their downsides, right? But what you are creating for yourself now is the foundation for the new cycle of your life, one in which you will bring all of this emotional wisdom that you have garnered over the last year. But I think that there's something rather simple in the pleasures that you seek now. It's like you understand the value of everything now, and I feel like you really wanting to have these important things front and center. Or not even front and center, like really underpinning how it is that you live out the rest of your days, however long you have left, however long any of us have left, right? it wants to be characterized by joy. You are in the pursuit of joy. Now, we've got that Eight of Pentacles there. I think it's such an understated thing. We've got a woman sat by a window with the sunlight streaming in there. I have to say, like, my favourite time of day to make videos is in the summer, really early in the morning here, because for only about 2 months of the year, the sun rises over there and shines through the window. And just the feeling of the sun on my hair and on my skin is so incredibly comforting. Like, I love it so much. And we've got this woman, she's just diligently working on this blanket that she's making. There's a simple joy about it. And we have the Four of Swords, more foundational energy, but one that speaks to peace. You know, this is my meditation card, the Four of Swords. It talks about recovery. It talks about healing, and this is the process that you are in now, right? It's so peaceful, actually. It feels really, really peaceful, and it was so intensely strong. The meditation before I started, I actually felt slightly nauseous with the power of the energy that was coming through there, but it's, like I said, it's so understated in the cards. As foundational things tend to be, you know, when you go and look at a new house, you never look at the foundations. You never consider how this thing, you know, is held up underneath the ground. When I was a kid, I thought you just built the house on it and had no idea about foundations, because you never perceive them. And that's what's going on here, right? It's a fundamental underpinning of your life moving forwards, and one that people may not ever perceive the extent of the work that went into doing that, but they will see what is built on top. And it seems to me that you're very concerned with what is built on top. Now, I'll tell you about this lesson. What is this energy for? Wow. You have the World card at the bottom of the deck there, the Shadow card. It talks about completion, it talks about the end of a cycle. This is the end of a cycle for you. And what a cycle it has been, right? I do think that this month, I know we're only really talking about this 2-week period, from the 15th to the 31st of May, but I do think that the month of May is the point where everything is turning properly for you now, like an understanding that there is a cycle complete, whether it is marked in some sort of material difference in your life, whether you are moving or, you know, that sort of thing, or whether it's all of the lessons bedding in so well that now your foundation, even if you don't relocate or do anything, you know, major with the restructuring of your material existence, your attitude, your perceptions, all of these things, like, this is where you start to build the things that other people can see. Now, in terms of the lesson, you know, what this was teaching you, it's incredibly profound. We have the Devil in reverse. It's Capricorn energy, but the Devil talks about the things that we fear. It talks about the ways in which we bind ourselves through fear to stuff that isn't very good for us. It's the stuff that it is in some way kind of toxic, actually. When you see it come out in the reverse, it is that decision to throw off the yoke of whatever it is that you've been attached to, right? It is confronting your fears. And honestly, Virgo, I mean, my God. We have the Devil reversed, we have the Nine of Swords, and we have the Death card. Now, this is interesting because the Nine of Swords actually came up in the last reading that I just did, and that was for Scorpio, right? And I was talking about this arbitrary rule that I have in most decks. Well, arbitrary rule that I have where swords up are good and swords down are bad, right? And in just about every single deck that I have, the Nine of Swords is depicted as stacked horizontally, right? All of those swords are usually up against a wall, something like that. And therefore it puts them in a relatively value neutral position. It's all about perception, right? Where is it that you are perceiving things to be harder than they actually are? Where are you perceiving things to be more punishing than they actually are? You know, it often speaks to those things that we worry about not actually having that much of a basis in reality, right? And it's interesting that the Triple Goddess should have been the one that wanted to be used for you, because I think out of all of the decks that I have, there is only one deck where the swords are not stacked horizontally, and it's this one. And they're all pointing down, right? All towards you. There's no sense of it being your perception that made this last year, year and a half hard. It was. It was perhaps one of the most challenging periods of your life. And where you have been, it feels like you've been to the depths of hell, Virgo, quite honestly. And for some of you, that is absolutely because of bereavement, because of death, because of someone really, really important passing over to you, from you, away from you, to another plane. And the themes of bereavement are present whether or not it was somebody moving to another plane. You have lost, and you've lost big, and you were supposed to, because you were supposed to pull yourself back from the very depths of where you have been. You know, the other meaning for the Death card, and one that is equally on point, I guess, is transformation. You have transformed yourself in the light of everything that you have experienced. And it's not a small transformation. It's immense. And it's one that has necessarily, absolutely changed you as a human being. But look at the last card that came out. It's the Nine of Cups. The card that deals with emotional fulfillment of the individual, of you, Virgo. Knowing that even when you've been down here, it is possible to pull yourself back out again and find joy in the small things. To be content, to be happy. You know, you are a formidable creature now, Virgo. A warrior, in fact. That's what you are. And there's an understanding here that happiness comes from within, right? But it is a state of mind. It is the journey. It's not about the destination. And it is self-generating. It is self-directed. It all comes down to you. And you have pulled yourself out of a very, very dark place, and things are changing for you now. Right? The new start, the new cycle is absolutely here. And you did it all by yourself, Virgo. It's such a humbling thing to see, just spread out over 4 cards there. And I understand it. And I totally understand what you've been through here. And I have so much respect. It gives me so much joy to see this change. Let's get some cards of advice for Virgo, please. Very first card is the Hermit. That's your card. Amazing. We've got the Lover's card at the bottom of the deck there. It talks about unity, and it talks about harmony and all those kind of things. But it talks about conscious co-creation most of all. It talks about you directing how your life goes. It talks about you stepping up and making decisions about the way that your life changes henceforth. And in terms of advice, just being you is a huge part of that, right? And it seems like a really simplistic, overly simplistic thing to say, but I think that a lot of what this experience has done is pulled away some of the layers that you kind of allowed to accrue over the top of who you are, you know, for a long time. You see things differently now, you see the world differently. You've really travelled within. You've really, really done that. And that will be your hallmark moving forwards. You can't lose sight of what it is that you know about yourself. And so your own personal authenticity is just going to shine a light for lots of other people too. But most of all for you. You know, it is your guiding light moving forwards. The next two cards that we have, interestingly, are the Empress and the Six of Cups there. Now, the Empress is the archetypal mother, and the Six of Cups often refers to children. It can refer to childhood. It can talk about past lives. It can talk about soulmates. But the Empress is all about the generation of the new things. You know, she's depicted as pregnant here in this card because she is gestating a new start. She's gestating new life, almost. And there's something of a cycle here that's being implied. You know, we have the children and we have the mother and we have the birth and we have all of these things kind of woven in together, but an inextricable part of this process is death. And as the cards are sitting on my table, you've got the trifecta sitting there. There's a huge cycle that you've been a part of, that you've been privy to, that you see. And it's almost like your appreciation for the new is absolutely fed by your understanding of loss. You know? The very last card that you've got is the Ace of Cups. And that's absolutely beautiful. As advice, it speaks obviously about remaining open and vulnerable and allowing, you know, allowing things to come to you, allowing emotion to come to you, being open to the you know, being able to receive that. For some of you, actually, there's an element here of a suggestion that there may well be new life springing up around you. It might not be you, it might be somebody around you. But this cycle, on and on. The Empress and the Ace of Cups together often indicate, you know, the arrival of new children. But I think more than anything, the advice here is just very simply and very understatedly just asking you to step forwards, right? Play your part in the cycle. Step forwards and start again, you know? It's an absolutely extraordinary reading, particularly given that there are so few cards on the table here. I'm so very proud of you, Virgo. And it's not because, you know, of anything that you might have achieved. You know, it's not about status. It's not, oh, well done, you did really well in your job, you've managed your finances correctly. No, this is something really, really profound. This is really the nature of existence, like why we are here. Your soul has learned that it is possible to come back from the very brink. And how you have grown. Oh, right. I'm going to stop here because if I don't, I might end up just crying, and that's really ridiculous. But there are some really beautiful things ahead for you, Virgo. Really beautiful. I feel that very strongly. Okay. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.